This can only end in despotism. Benjamin Franklin called it. He knew that when the people themselves become corrupt, liberty doesn't stand a chance. And he was far from alone. The founders, the old revolutionaries, and so many of the great thinkers that they read and learned from, they saw it again and again and again. No matter the system, no matter the laws, once the people decay, tyranny follows, guaranteed. And today, we're on that same path. Not because we're forced on that path, but because we, the people, have chosen it. This episode is about the corruption that no constitution can do anything about. The corruption of the people themselves. But first of all, before getting to that, welcome, and thank you for joining me here on the path to liberty. My name is Michael Bolden with the 10th Amendment Center, and this is the show for Friday, June 13th, 2025. Let's get right to it. Benjamin Franklin, well, he understood that freedom is not granted or given by parchments, by documents, or politicians. It's earned, and only a virtuous and moral people are capable of keeping it. And that's the message he fired off in an April 1787 letter. This is just before the Philadelphia Convention. He said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. And during the ratification debates in the following year, this is the summer of 1788, the father of the Constitution, James Madison, basically said it was a dangerous fantasyland attitude to think you can have liberty and happiness if the people themselves are corrupt. And if you think about it, if the people are corrupt, they're the ones choosing the people to be in government. You're not going to have good results there. Here's how he put it. To suppose that any form of government will secure liberty or happiness without any virtue in the people is a chimerical idea. If there be sufficient virtue and intelligence in the community, you got to have both, it will be exercised in the selection of those men. They're going to choose good people so that we do not depend on their virtue or put confidence in our rulers. Because you can't trust people with power. This is part of human nature. But instead in the people who are to choose them. And Thomas Jefferson, he also understood in his notes on the state of Virginia, this is 1784, he understood the real threat, moral decay, spreading through the people like some kind of a hidden rot eating you from the inside out. And sometimes it does that silently until it breaks the entire thing down. He said, it is the manners and spirit of a people which preserve a republic in vigor. A degeneracy in these is a canker, which soon eats to the heart of its laws and constitution. Now, of course, the founders, the old revolutionaries, they did not invent these ideas. They inherited them. For example, from this guy, Algernon Sidney, who Thomas Jefferson years later said wrote the best elementary book based in natural law on government ever written in any language. Pretty important stuff. Not easy reading all the time, but Algernon Sidney's discourses concerning government in the late 17th century, he was put to death for merely writing this, not even publishing it, so he was considered a martyr for liberty, a hero to the American revolutionaries. He warned that liberty and virtue live and die together. He said, liberty cannot be preserved if the manners of the people are corrupted, nor absolute monarchy introduced where they are sincere. And you could tie all that together because that's how you see John Adams did. He understood that a constitution would be useless, or here he is talking about the Constitution for these United States, useless without a moral and principled people. He said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And that's the foundation. If the people want to have liberty, they have to be capable of having liberty. When the people lose their virtue, when they sink to corruption, they invite the tyranny. Samuel Adams put it like this: it is in the interest of tyrants to reduce the people to ignorance and vice. And again, we're talking about ignorance here because James Madison said, well, if you're virtuous and you have knowledge, then you have good moral standards and you're aware of all the things, you're going to be able to have a good system where you protect liberty and advance happiness. And here on the other end, Samuel Adams understood that people who want to basically have crushing power, tyrants, they want the people in a state of ignorance and vice. And he said, for they cannot live in any country where virtue and knowledge prevail. And that's really the game plan. Break the spirit of the people, and you don't even need to fire a shot. You don't need chains. The people do the work of the tyrant for them. And this is how Samuel Adams put it. This is in the Boston Gazette, writing as Valerius Poplicola. This is October 1772. The religion and public liberty of a people are intimately connected. Their interests are interwoven. They cannot subsist separately, and therefore they rise and fall together. So the father of the American Revolution really hammered this out, and here's the penman of the American Revolution, John Dickinson. He saw it firsthand. In his Letters from a Farmer in Pennsylvania, the most widely read documents on American liberty, up until publication of Thomas Paine's Common Sense in 1776, he didn't just talk about government power. He wrote about how the people voluntarily give up their liberty because they're too afraid or too lazy to do what's needed to keep it. He said they voluntarily fasten their chains by adopting a pusillanimous opinion that there will be too much danger in attempting a remedy, or another opinion no less fatal, that the government has a right to treat them as it does. Dickinson pointed out this is how liberty dies, not with a bang, but with a whimper and a bunch of rationalization. He wrote, they then seek a wretched relief for their minds by persuading themselves that to yield their obedience is to discharge their duty. The deplorable poverty of spirit that prostrates the dignity bestowed by divine providence on our nature, of course, succeeds. And Algernon Sidney saw the same thing a whole century earlier. A corrupt people won't do what it takes to be free. They won't fight for their own liberty. He said, those who are ignorant of all good, careless, or enemies to it, take a more compendious way, their slavish, vicious, and base natures, inclining them to seek only private and present advantages, so thinking only in the short term, what can I get out of this today, instead of thinking about how this affects posterity, like the founding generation really tried to do. He said they easily slide into a blind dependence upon one who has wealth and power. And once that happens, it's over. They'll follow the strongest hand, the most powerful person, no matter how vile. And he wrote, and desiring only to know his will, care not what injustice they do, if they may be rewarded. They worship what they find in the temple, though it be the vilest of idols, and always like the best, which is worst, because it agrees with their inclinations and principles. And this same lesson isn't just from the Enlightenment, the founders, the revolutionaries. It goes all the way back to ancient Rome. And through Thomas Gordon's translation of the works of Tacitus, we learn what happens when a distracted and morally numb people, well, become so corrupt. I mean, that in and of itself is a little redundant. But here's how he put it. They rendered the people idle, venal, vicious, insensible of private virtue, insensible of public glory or disgrace. But the things were liked and the ends not seen or not minded, so that they had their thorough effect. So basically, what we're talking about is distract the people, feed them, keep them entertained, and basically that keeps them soft. He said, and the Roman people, they who were wont to direct mighty wars, to raise and depose great kings, to bestow or take away empires. They who ruled the world or directed its rule were so sunk and debauched that if they had but bread and shows, their ambition went no higher. Just sink them into nothingness, really. And even Machiavelli understood that tyranny doesn't really depend on the tyrant. It depends on the people themselves. And this is back in Discourses on Livy. I think he wrote it around 1510-ish, 1513, and it was published, I think, after he passed around 1530. But I mean, all these are going to be in the show notes over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/path-to-liberty. But here's Machiavelli. And it must be assumed as a well-demonstrated truth that a corrupt people that lives under the government of a prince can never become free. Not once in a while, not most of the time, not here and there, but never. It will never become free, even though the prince and his whole line should be extinguished. So Machiavelli's taking the position that if you have a corrupt people, even if you took out all the leadership, as long as the people remain corrupt, they will never, ever, ever be free. And the Roman historian Sallust, he also did not blame emperors. He put the blame right where it belongs, with the people themselves. And this is from Thomas Gordon's translation in Works of Sallust, which was published in 1744, widely read by the founding generation. Now such fondness for civil disorders, and for the wicked authors of such, is, by this account, entirely derived from the depraved spirit and disposition of the people. The depraved spirit and disposition of the people is why you have civil disorders, and not imputable to the misconduct of the magistrates, however faulty they may be. So even if the magistrates are faulty, they're terrible, really the ultimate problem is the people themselves. And corrupt people, they hate good magistrates. They hate good leaders. And they cheer on tyrants and traitors. And Gordon continued, again, Works of Sallust. Nay, the best, the most strict and steady administration must have been the most disliked and unpopular when the people were passionate for the worst calamities, such as civil dissensions and war. And for the wickedest men, such as promoted those calamities, and because they promoted them, even for Catiline, Cethegus, and every great traitor and incendiary. Sometimes the words trip me up a little bit there. Now fast forward back to the ratification of the Constitution. Here's John Dickinson writing as Fabius in his fourth essay in 1788. He didn't hold back when discussing how to enforce the Constitution. He was very clear. He said a good constitution, and he was also the lead writer or author of the Articles of Confederation. The man was very well versed in this stuff. He said a good constitution promotes, but doesn't always produce a good administration. So he asked the essential question. Well, when you get a bad administration, this was his term, what is then to be done? He said the answer is to be instantly found before the supreme sovereignty of the people. The final authority of the people is the enforcement mechanism for the Constitution. He said it is their duty to watch and their right to take care that the Constitution be preserved, or in the Roman phrase on perilous occasions, to provide that the Republic receive no damage. And so back to Samuel Adams, he understood that freedom depended on the people themselves. He said all might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as their ought. And he had one word for the kind of people who lacked the virtue and the backbone to get the job done: contempt. He said, if therefore a people will not be free, if they have not virtue enough to maintain their liberty against a presumptuous invader, they deserve no pity and are to be treated with contempt and ignominy. Well, I guess that's two words technically, but let's go with contempt. And that brings us back full circle to Benjamin Franklin. On the very last day of the Philadelphia Convention, September 17th, 1787, what these days we call Constitution Day, he gave us a warning for the ages. absolutely brutal and absolutely prophetic. He started out by pointing out that he was going to sign on and support the Constitution, even though he wasn't 100% on board with what was in it. He said, "In these sentiments, sir, I agree to this Constitution, with all its faults if they are such, because I think a general government necessary for us. And there is no form of government but what may be a blessing to the people if well administered." But that's a caveat, if. And he said, I believe farther, that this is likely to be well administered for a course of years and can only end in despotism, as other forms have done before it, when the people shall become so corrupted as to need despotic government, being incapable of any other. We were warned. When the people become corrupt, liberty doesn't stand a chance. A constitution is absolute toast. That was the message from Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Samuel Adams, John Dickinson, Thomas Jefferson, and many, many others. But because the government-run and government-approved education system really never teaches anyone any of these principles, hardly anyone even thinks about this stuff. And that is a big part of the reason why, for the last 19 years, our anniversary, we were founded in June of 2006. We have been working so hard, day in and day out, month in and month out. It's hard to believe, but 19 years, year in and year out, to reach and teach more and more people about these essential foundational principles from the founders, the old revolutionaries, and the great thinkers that they read and learned from. And nothing helps us do this work more than the financial faith and support of our members. If you got a couple of bucks of that quickly devaluing, dirty government fiat, please consider throwing it our way over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. It would be an amazing anniversary gift for us to be able to continue our work and build on it in the years to come. Our membership program starts out at just $2 a month. We also have annual, 5-year, and lifetime options. Again, 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. It's all spelled out. Now, if you don't want to become a member, but you still want to support us, that's totally fine by me. I'm very grateful for any consideration you can give to putting your financial faith behind our work. Or if you're already a member, that is really awesome. Thank you very much. But if you want to help out a little bit more, no pressure on that. I just want to make sure you know how you can do that with a one-time gift over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/donate. Of course, there's a bunch of other free and easy-peasy things you can do to help us spread the word, primarily by triggering the algorithm of the platforms you may watch or listen on, like reviews on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast platform, hitting the like button, subscribe, get notifications, comments in the archive on any platform is very helpful. But a real big one is watch time percentage. If you watch 50% of it, a 10-minute video, watch 5 minutes, that's going to tell the algorithm that the video probably isn't all that great. We're not going to show it to too many people. But if you watch 20 minutes, that's 200%. And it's really awesome. So anyways, I'm very grateful for any support you can give us, whether it's financial, otherwise, a combination of the two. But I'm really just grateful that you're still here listening to me talk. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it was interesting, maybe a little entertaining here and there. This is a really deep, very serious topic to cover today, but I think it's one that not enough people are talking about. That's why I wanted to get in on this right away, because I see it happening all around us. Anyways, I hope more than anything, this made you think and you learned something. Again, I really appreciate you spending some of your time with me today. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and I will be back next week, Wednesday and Friday, on the path to liberty.